right.
Thank
Welcome.
you.
Welcome to another episode of Leadership, the Secret Sauce with coaches Dave Lipsky and Matt Dodson. I'm Matt Dodson. It's brought to you by our sponsor, Character Matters Coaching and Consulting. And I'm one of your hosts, Matt Dodson. And today we're going to actually do our intro. We're going to answer the questions that we
I like it. Hey,
ask.
Matt, but before we get started, why does character matter?
Yeah. Well, it's really your compass that sort of guides you through life. So if you're looking for a purpose, we take a look at your character. So if you're facing any challenges, things like that, we go back to character. So anyway, it's a true north. Yeah. Okay. So Dave, I'm going to ask you just some questions, and then you can go ahead and ask me. So this is one of the things we wanted to do was we wanted to answer the questions that we are going to ask other coaches or other leaders that come.
Will this make me cry, Matt? Should I have tissues ready? How deep are we going?
I don't think you're going to need tissues, but I am a prone to cry a little bit. So, but I don't necessarily think that will happen. But
okay.
you never know.
I'll have tissues for you.
Yeah.
Virtually.
Yeah. Okay. Would you like to go first, Dave?
Sure. Were you going to ask me a question first, or am I supposed to ask you a question?
I'll ask you. Okay. So, our two basic questions. What's your secret sauce? Yeah. When did you know? So, Dave, what is your secret sauce?
My secret sauce is not believing that I have only one secret sauce. So I think I have in coaching, when I decided to truly put on the coaching hat, around 2012-ish, I think, is before that point, I was focused mostly on like learning and development, executive development, assessments, like all that stuff that we do inside organizations. And then around that time, I had decided that I wanted to go get my executive coaching certificate. So I went to this program. It was with this guy, Bob Lee. It was the last program he taught at iCoach in Baruch in New York City. And it was absolutely fabulous. But I was waiting the whole time to find like what's the one best model that I'm going to find to coach, and how is this program going to educate me in a way so that I suddenly become the coach. And it took me a while. It was a little frustrating to figure out that it wasn't the model. It wasn't the content. I wasn't going to learn to be a coach in class. Is that I needed to decide to let go of all content and models and possible solutions to being a coach and just to be the coach.
Wow.
I think it was like leaning into the choice and accepting that I need to connect with the person who is across from me. We learned, 80% probably more of the reason why we get coaching jobs is referral. People have a good experience, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of being that good coach, one is I had to make a conscious choice of like letting go of trying to find better content, right? It's always, I learned that it is always choose connection over content. The content isn't gonna get me to be that better coach. So I think that's that was a big part of it for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Can I ask you? I mean, are we going one at a time, or are we going to go back and forth?
We can do whatever we want, right? I can share.
What's one thing
because mine's a little, yeah. Yeah. I would say this. I think if I had a secret sauce, which I think I do, it's kind of like it is this sort of disarming candor, like some self-effacing humor, allows people just to talk and share with me whatever they need to talk about. And really, I think it's an intangible. I also think it's not. It's, hey, I feel really comfortable around you. I feel like this is a. I don't like the necessarily this is a safe place, but it does feel safe. Like, hey, I can actually ask some really fundamental questions, and it's going to be okay. I think on more than one occasion, someone has maybe thought something about me that was not me at all. They're like, oh, I always thought you thought just like me, or I always thought you were this. And I was like, no. I think as a like a practice of like what I like to do is I like to make suggestions rather than tell someone. And I'm probably too subtle at times, or I try to actually say, well, this is what I did, and hope they pick it up. And that's probably at times some people go, no, tell me what I need to do. Don't give me a suggestion. And I've had that. And I think that kind of also plays into the sauce. Like, you're not going to get a bunch of directives from me unless you really say, tell me what to do. I also like to throw in, I don't know whether it's pithy quotes or just anecdotes that I've got over the years, something like that, something that I've read. I read a lot. And I like to kind of share those, like, hey, look, this is something that I learned from a mentor at some point in time. This is what I learned from this leader. This is what I learned from that leader. I think that can be like, oh, it's possible. I can do that. Or that's something difficult, but I'm not the only one that has gone through that.
So when we first met, right, conference board, and then I would see you like sporadically, right, and then sometimes we'd get together in person, which is cool, right? And I always like through the years like that we I got to know you. There was something about always looking forward to experiencing you, right? And like you just described part of it. It was just like, oh, there's Matt. Like I want to talk with him, and he's easy to talk with. There's no judgment. He brings positive energy into conversation. He shows deep curiosity about what it is that you're talking about, and you want to like lean in, which is very cool. So I think like as you describe your secret sauce, that's like my experience of your secret sauce from the other side. You're welcome.
Thanks. Dave, one of the other questions we want to ask is, when did you, okay, so you get this training and you try it out, or you knew, when did you know? Like, hey, that it's about being the coach, not necessarily a model.
Yeah.
When did you know?
Well, in terms of like, I'm thinking it's not the model, but I am a coaching model. So I was thinking about maybe doing my Instagram profile, like coaching model, strike a pose. Coaching model. So it's
coaching. Oh, I get it. Oh, the literal coaching model.
See, I knew, it would be clear to you that I am coaching model material. Right?
Definitely.
We could do sponsorships, right? Like, here, buy this hat, coaching hat. So when did I know I was a coach? I think, part of my experience of being a coach has been how I talk to my children. And I think what struck me is, and part of it is like your kids are younger, right? When they're younger, it's maintenance, right? It's boundaries. It's trying to teach values through some external, like you can't go out with your friends if you don't do these things, as opposed to intrinsically of like, why do you want to do those things? Like, why would you want to brush your teeth?
Mm.
And I think as I was that, the times where I was like, my kids got a little bit older and they were cognitively, they were developing. They no longer needed just like the maintenance parent. They like wanted to talk about challenges they were having with their friends and challenges at school. And what I realized is like, wow, I'm like, parents can't really solve a lot of things for their kids, especially social issues. Just it's we can listen, right? We could say, hey, here's what happened when I was a kid, and I didn't have shoes and I had to walk in the snow, both ways uphill, which is not isn't necessarily helpful. But then I realized like the most helpful I could be as a parent is just asking them questions. Like how does that make you feel? All right. Like, what did you try? What would you do differently? Even like the just basic grow model questions. And then suddenly like I became like super parent. I was like super parent. Like suddenly my kids are like, huh, that was really helpful, Dad. It's like, you don't hear that. So I think that's when I realized like it's good stuff.
Okay, so I'll share when I kind of knew. Maybe like I would always kind of point it back to about 13 years ago. There was a guy who was my mentor. And his name was Dave. And Dave, not you,
There's
Dave.
another Dave.
There are a lot of important Daves in my life. There's lots of Daves. But Dave wanted to be around me. And that never happened to me. It was a very, like, I always wanted to be around mentors, right? And I would like, look, but Dave wanted to be around me. And the other time, there was a very senior executive, long-term, and I went to his retirement sort of, banquet. I don't know, whatever you call it, sort of the mixer. It was in the afternoon. And I was standing there with Dave. And I was standing there with another friend of mine who was a very senior executive and the future CEO and the current CEO. And I was just standing there in this group of men and women. And I just felt totally awkward. I just was like, I'm out of place. I don't belong. And I went back to that HR leader. And I said to her, that was a wild experience. And I said, I don't feel like I belong. And she looked at me and she goes, Matt, you belong. And I just, it changed my thinking in terms of wanting to be around other people that wasn't necessarily important that they were C-suite type of people. But what was important is that these people wanted to be around me just as much as I wanted to be around them. And that was really unique.
How did you accept that? Or did you accept it?
Well, I've had a hard time accepting it, actually, really, just because I think of myself as a very sort of common person, just a normal, average, everyday, a person. And I don't think in terms of like, I don't like the whole status or whatever it happens to be. And I just found that to be like I just have to think about these people that are just people. They all have struggles. They want to be treated like people. They don't want, some of them may not want their voice to like say, more than just, hey, I'm just sharing my opinion, or I'm just sharing. And I think that sort of helps me like realize that these people need development too, just like me. They're not a finished
Yeah.
product. They all have struggles. Like when one of the leaders would say something about something else, everybody, like, even though they may not say it in the circle, they leave and they go, yeah, I don't want to do that either. And that was like, I learned a lot because it was some of these leaders were living they lead a very different life than I lead. But I would still say from a human perspective, I belong. And I belong in terms of just being able to truly listen. And that's really what they wanted. And that's why I belonged in that group.
Nicely said. So, I think that's a running theme in my life as well, which is like, where do I place myself in the level of importance compared to other people, right? And like judging myself, a little bit of imposter syndrome sometimes, like who let the little kid at the big table, and and it is like running in circles of like people that live different lives, right, and are managing like large businesses and making enormous sums of money, realizing like, oh wow, do they need human, right? They need somebody to relate to them on a human to human level, and that's what, like, I'm good at that. Like, I'm good at like being a person that can connect on a human level, and then when I get out of bounds, it's when I think I am either greater than or less than the individual that is across from me.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh, that's right on. Dave, that's what I really love about you. I would say that. I want to just acknowledge you for that is solid. And that's a very attractive quality about you. I want you to know that. So
I would say ditto. Yeah. And I would also say, like, to bring this to like people who are developing like their ability to coach others, is you never turn that off, right? It's like that always, like, it always can creep in, like, oh, like, am I being interesting enough? Am I smart enough to be in this conversation? Should I, right? So it's always the advice monster is kind of interesting. Like, we were talking, like, we play roles where it's not just pure coaching. It's like advice in terms of navigating organizations, knowing people. It's like there's a mix of things. But when I think I am almost like entertaining myself with something that I know that the person doesn't, I have to check myself, because I'm just like, even though I know the answer to the question that person is struggling with, am I doing it to feel good? Because I know, to put myself equal with, right, as good as, or whatever, or am I doing it that really is going to help that person get from like A to B to C? And I don't, imperfect humans don't always do the right
thing. Right on. Dave, if you were to summarize why we're doing this podcast, what would you say?
I would say we are doing this podcast to unleash the potential of coaches across the planet, to create a better world, better organizations, better individuals, better people, that can accomplish their goals, like contribute more to what they're trying to accomplish, contribute more to society.
Yeah. And I think if I were to answer that question, I think we wanted to do this podcast because we like being around other coaches.
We want to hang out with the right crowd.
And I really love being around coaches. And some of that has to do with, because I think as a coach, I have to answer some fundamental hard questions. And I want to hear about those things, like from a coach. Like, to me, that's fascinating. And I hope people like that are listening and or that will listen will want to hear that too. Like, if they just tune in, listen, give it a try, subscribe. We promise we will actually ask provocative questions. We'll ask always the two questions: what's your secret sauce, and when did you know? So, Dave, if you got anything else, I think that's all for today's episode of Leadership, the Secret Sauce. A big thank you to our sponsor, shameless plug here to Character Matters Coaching and Consulting. Remember, your character is the compass that guides you. And with the right support, you can conquer any challenge that comes your way.
Well said.
So please subscribe, and we hope that you continue to listen.